You found yourself on another episode of Locked On Bulls. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the Bulls' second preseason game. We're also going to talk about Julian Phillips and how he continues to step up for the Chicago Bulls. Has he earned himself a spot in the rotation? We're going to get into all that plus more on today's Locked On Bulls.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily Chicago Bulls podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. I'm Haize. You guys can follow me at CEO Haize. You can also check out my podcast at Chicago Bulls Central. I'm the host of Chicago Bulls and Chicago Bears Central YouTube pages and podcasts. If I can get my words right today, I don't know why I'm tripping over my words today. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it, man. So the Chicago Bulls had their second preseason game on Saturday. Locked On Bulls is not around on weekends, but we do have a game today. We will be locked in tonight after the game, so make sure you guys stay in tune. Hit that subscribe button if you want a live post-game show here with Locked On Bulls after the game tonight. But this second preseason game brought some clear revelations in regards to the team. So first up, Kobe White did not play in the team's second preseason game because he had a groin injury. Him and Jalen Smith both set out this game. And so it presented some interesting lineups for the Chicago Bulls. I would assume who initially started for the Chicago Bulls team. He had a shoulder injury. He ends up going down, not playing in the second half of this game. He only played 14 minutes in this game. But this was the game where you saw Zach LaVine, for anybody who's forgot, for anybody who needed to be reminded, for anybody who's been calling Zach LaVine trash, right? Zach LaVine reminded everyone just how good he can be. Now, I do want to throw out this. This was the Memphis Grizzlies team that set a lot of their key rotational pieces. There are 6 to 7 of their top 8 guys that were out of this game. So that played a part into it as well. But Zach LaVine going 9 of 12 from this game, 6 of 6 from three-point range, 4 of 4 from the free throw line. In only 22 minutes, he had 28 points, 4 assists, 2 steals from Zach LaVine. And it was really good to see Zach LaVine get in that type of rhythm because we just haven't seen that Zach LaVine in a while. It's been a long minute since we got to see that type of Zach LaVine. And it was really good to see Zach LaVine play in that manner. And while Josh Giddey did not have the stat sheet, right? I want to be clear here. He shot the ball like crap. 3 of 10 from the field. He still had 11 points. He was plus 12 of the in the game, plus minus of plus 12. He had 7 rebounds, 7 assists, and 2 blocks in this game. Josh Giddey, again, much like with Zach LaVine, is showing you guys what he can bring to the team. And listen, he took a 3-point shot confidently when the team went under a screen. He hit that confidently. Now, unfortunately, he went 0-3 the rest of the game, so he finished 1 of 4 from three-point range. But again, the chemistry between Zach and Josh Giddey, you got to see a little bit of today. You got to see, in Saturday's game, you got to see how Josh Giddey can be effective and how he can start the break, finish the break with passes, things like that. But it was definitely Zach LaVine, especially in that first half of the game. Those 22 minutes, the 28 points that he gave were nothing short than amazing. But then, coming off the bench for the Chicago Bulls, Julian Phillips. Listen, we'll talk about him in the second segment of this episode, so I'm not going to get too much into it. But just know, Julian Phillips led the Bulls in minutes. He was second in scoring. He had an amazing game for the Chicago Bulls, taking 3-point shots confidently, going 4 of 4 with his first 3-point shots. And he ended up finishing 5 of 8, but overall, like 7 of 12 from the field, 21 points, 8 rebounds, 1 assist. Julian Phillips showed a lot in the game, and that's why it warrants its own segment on this episode. We'll get into that going forward. Dalen Terry, 4-7 from the field, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks as well in this game. This was a game where the young Bulls, yet again in the second half of the game, they were unleashed. And you got to see the rhythm that Julian Phillips and Dalen Terry had, for that matter. And there's been a lot of criticism over Dalen Terry recently, and I don't know if it's just that people have this expectation of Dalen Terry to be something that he's just never going. Dalen Terry is not a scorer. Right now, his shot needs to be better, right? We need to see a more consistent shot from him. But the best things that Dalen Terry is going to bring to this Bulls team isn't shooting a bunch or scoring a bunch of points. It's the other things that Dalen Terry could do. And Dalen Terry flashed that Swiss Army knife potential that I like to talk about Dalen Terry having. 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks from Dalen Terry in this game. Dalen Terry performed in a really good way in this game. And I got to keep asking people, what are people expecting from Dalen Terry? Because he's not a scorer. He's not going to be Zach LaVine. He's not going to be Kobe White. He's not going to be Ayo Dosunmu. That's not his role. That's not his skill set. Dalen Terry is a guy that in transition, the 4 assists specifically from Dalen Terry in Saturday's game were all basically in transition, all him keeping heads up plays, all him looking and reading what the defense was going to do and how his teammates were cutting to the basket, all really well. Dalen Terry has grown hugely for the Chicago Bulls team, and he's looking like a player that can actually contend for minutes consistently this year. Not the spot minutes, not the inconsistent where you'll play 2 games and then sit down for 4. Dalen Terry may actually be in the rotation for this Chicago Bulls team. But then, you know me, I even when I don't like it, I gotta talk about the truth. Talen Horton Tucker in this game. We'll talk about him as well. How he performed down the stretch of this game in the fourth quarter. All 16 of his points coming in the fourth quarter of this game. 5 of 11 from the field, 3 steals in this game, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. Listen, Talen Horton Tucker was balling as well. That's why we'll talk about him more towards the end of the show. But then let's talk about the players that didn't look as good. A lot of you guys in the comment section, specifically over here on Locked On Bulls, there's been some over on Chicago Bulls Central, but specifically over here on Locked On Bulls. Some of y'all been saying that Chris Duarte was going to be the surprise player for the Bulls. Some of y'all were saying that Chris Duarte is better than Dalen Terry. Somebody even said he's better than Ayo Dosunmu. And I need to know what type of drugs are you on? Because Chris Duarte has sucked every game of this season for the Chicago Bulls. Every single game. Chris Duarte does not look like he belongs on the court. He doesn't look like he plays within the offensive system. Chris Duarte has been trash. Chris Duarte played 4 minutes in Saturday's game. And in those 4 minutes, he had 3 points, 4 turnovers, and 3 personal fouls. In 4 minutes, 4. And for those that are on the podcast side of this, I'm staring down the barrel of the camera, staring in the hearts and souls of Bulls fans that try to cap and say that Chris Duarte was going to be special for. What? Come on. What are we talking about? Like, Chris Duarte has been god-awful. And for those that thought that Chris Duarte was going to pass up any of the Bulls' young players or anybody in this rotation, I need y'all to go sit in the corner. Go sit in the corner right now. Go sit in the corner and ask yourself, what are you doing? What are you doing? Matter of fact, I would say this. Javon Carter played considerably better than Chris Duarte in Saturday's game. It was night and day. Compared, Chris Duarte is the Javon Carter of Chris Duarte's. That's like, it was terrible. It was god-awful. Like, it's Denzel Valentine reincarnated. That's how bad it was. And then we got continued. Now, Patrick Williams played 18 minutes. He ends up sitting with, he had to get x-rays on his wrist. He did play a lot of small ball center in this game. For some reason, Billy Donovan still only played Adama in a game where we were missing Jalen Smith and missing Patrick Williams for a lot of this game. Adama Sanogo only played 5 minutes. 5 minutes. I don't know what Billy Donovan has against Adama Sanogo. I don't know what it is. Billy Donovan said after media day, he wants to see what Adama can do at the NBA level. You're not even playing him in preseason. What are we doing, Billy? What are we doing? It's just every time Billy Donovan does something good, you look at him and you say, why are you so god-awful in what do you have against big men? What do you have against actual centers? I don't understand it. I really don't understand it. I don't. I don't understand what we're doing here. But it is what it is when it comes down to it. I don't control the lineups. I don't control the rotations. And the Bulls we played at a much better pace than what we did in the last game as well. The Bulls in this game played with the pace of 1 second. We had an offensive rating in this game of 108.2. We also had a defensive rating of 108.3, which isn't too bad there. We got a fast break buckets. We took 8 fast break shots. We took 12. We made 8 of those, which is solid. The Bulls also had a 55% true shooting percentage, which is okay. And we had an offensive efficiency of 135. So there's some good things that are showing for the Chicago Bulls team. You got to give them credit, but overall, like, it's still the head scratching lineups from Billy Donovan. And I just don't understand what Billy Donovan's looking out there. But we're going to continue talking about some of the preseason because I still want to talk about Nikola Vucevic and what I'm seeing from him. But before we get into that, I got to talk to you guys about a message from one of our sponsors, and that is FanDuel. All right, Bulls fans, if you guys have been around for a while, you know I've been talking to you guys about FanDuel. They've been one of the most consistent sponsors we've had here at Locked On Bulls. And you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, which is America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. I keep telling you guys how big that is to be able to have at the disposal of all on the same page. You get your stats, you get your analytics, you get your play-by-play, the same page where you can place your bets. It just streamlines that whole entire process for you, especially if you're in the middle of a game already going on and you're trying to place a quick bet. FanDuel can help you do that with streamlining that whole process on the same page where you can place your bets. You get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet, because some of y'all broke and shouldn't be betting anyway. And instead of betting a whole lot of money, you can place your first $5 bet, get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's at FanDuel.com. Again, FanDuel.com, $200 in bonus bets when you place your first $5 bet, and tell them Locked On Bulls sent you. All right, Bulls fans. So I just want to continue a little bit about this preseason game, and then we'll get into Dalen Terry and how I feel Julian Phillips and how he's really stood up a lot for the Chicago Bulls. And I think he's really earned himself a spot in the rotation. But we got to talk about Nikola Vucevic. We got to talk about Vooch, right? Patrick Williams, defensively, he gave some things. He took 9 shots in this game. Still, a lot of Bulls fans are going to be upset with Patrick Williams, especially when you got guys like Julian Phillips. You got guys like Modest Bucilis. You got guys like Dalen Terry that are showing you something. Patrick Williams is still basically the same player that he was his rookie year. Now, that comes with its own positives and negatives. I mean, he's still a really good defender. Guarding up to centers today is really good. Love to see that. But it still leaves a lot to be desired when it comes to Patrick Williams, right? Like, you can't take that away. But Nikola Vucevic continues putting up decent stat lines. I got to give it credit. When you just look at the stat lines, they're decent. 3-6 from the field today, on Saturday, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, 7 points. In 23 minutes, that's not bad production. It's just not bad. But the problem is that when you look at the game and when you watch the basketball game and you watch how Nikola Vucevic slows things down when the Bulls are clearly trying to play faster, that's where you got. And to get Vooch involved, you basically have to slow down your offense because he's not a threat in transition. He's not a threat as a trail man in transition to shoot a 3. He's just not that. He's not a threat in transition to be a lob threat. We know Vooch doesn't jump. So all these things play into a part where you're just looking at Vooch and you're just saying, what are we doing? What are we doing, Nikola Vucevic? What are you giving the Bulls right now? And again, Vooch can still be a very productive player. But I think what we're seeing from Vooch is that to get him involved in the game, you have to play such a particular way that it's just not conducive to the way that the rest of the team is trying to play. When Vooch got out that game and Torrey Craig was playing small ball center, and you had Torrey Craig out there running the court, running it with Ayo Dosunmu, running it with Modest Bucilis, running it with Dalen Terry, we were attacking the rim and getting points easy, right? And so that's what you got to look at when it comes to Nikola Vucevic. Again, I am in no way saying to you guys that Nikola Vucevic can't still make an impact, that he can't still put up points, right? We already know defensively. I'm not even going to waste my time talking about Vooch defensively. If y'all don't know, trash, god-awful, gutter. It is what it is. But when you look at Nikola Vucevic specifically and what he does well, to get the most out of what Vooch does well, it means playing in a way that is against the way the rest of your roster is trying to play. And how they work out that dynamic to start off the season is going to be interesting. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be super interesting because it doesn't fit. One of these things is not like the other. And one of those things is Nikola Vucevic. Nikola Vucevic. That's one of those things. So it's tough, y'all. It's tough to watch. It's tough to watch. But let's talk about something that's not tough to watch. That's Julian Phillips. Listen, this young man and Julian Phillips coming into this season, one of the questions is who's the next young player to develop for the Chicago Bulls, right? And the reason I'm not putting Matas Buzelis on this list because Buzelis is a rookie. He's laying a foundation now. We can't say how much is he going to develop. Yes, how much can he develop within his rookie year? But you're looking at who from last year has stepped up the most. And that so far through preseason has been Julian Phillips. You're talking about a player that the reason why he went to the second round is because he couldn't shoot. He couldn't shoot. Then we found out that, well, he could shoot. He actually was a damn good shooter in high school, but his college coaches decided to change his shot for some reason, and he just didn't shoot the ball effectively in college. You are now seeing Julian Phillips after a season of working with Peter Patton. And after the game, he talked about how Peter Patton has helped him with his three-point shot. Not only is Julian Phillips bringing defense, he's bringing energy, he's bringing the ability to be a lob threat, to finish out in transition, to start the fast break. But then now you add shooting to that. Julian Phillips is like if you took what Javonte Green was bringing you and what Derrick Jones Jr. was bringing us at his best, and they did the fusion dance, and you got Julian Phillips. That's what Julian Phillips could be off the bench for the Chicago Bulls. And I'm at this point, right, saying that he needs to be that fourth guy off the bench. We already know the first three: Ayo Dosunmu, Jalen Smith, Matas Buzelis. Those are guys that I think are going to get minutes regardless. Torrey Craig is probably going to get minutes too, but Julian Phillips is separating himself by the combination of all the things that he's bringing to the court for the Chicago Bulls. And for a team that is going to need three-point shooting, for a team that's going to need some point of attack defense, for a team that's going to need somebody who can get out in transition and catch the lobs from Ayo, from Josh Giddey, from Kobe White, Julian Phillips is offering right now the best case scenario for that. Now, again, the caveat of this being preseason, right? So you got to see if he's going to be able to bring it in the regular season. You want to see that, right? But so far, I say this. There's a reason why Julian Phillips led the Chicago Bulls in minutes, I think in both of the Bulls' first preseason games. There's a reason why that happened. He led the Chicago Bulls in minutes with 27 in the second preseason game. I'm going to check the first one now. I like to back up what I say to make sure I'm not tripping. And yes, he led the Chicago Bulls. Julian Phillips is leading the Chicago Bulls in minutes right now. Leading the team in minutes in preseason. To me, that indicates somebody that you plan on playing in the regular season. Because why are you giving that guy that many minutes if he's just gonna whittle away on the bench? Julian Phillips is showing so much of what the Bulls need. Growth. You have to reward that, in my opinion. You cannot go into another time where you just look at Julian Phillips and him performing for you and say, cool, thanks, young fella. Sit down. We'll get to you when we get to you. You cannot do that, in my opinion. To do that would be completely killing the momentum that this kid is building in preseason right now. And the momentum is indeed building. You cannot deny that. Now, again, it's up to Julian Phillips to show, hey, I can also bring this in the regular season. Because we've seen players before have really, really big preseasons, and then they fall off in the regular season, right? We've seen it happen before. So I'm not going to act like it's not something that we haven't seen. I'm not going to act like just because he's doing it now means that he'll maintain it in the regular season. But through 2 games in the preseason so far, Julian Phillips is averaging 15 points per game on 58% shooting. He's taking 5.5 3-pointers per game, hitting that at a 54% clip. He's averaging 6 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 block. That's a player that you play. And he's also only fouling 1 foul per game. This is a player that you play in the regular season. What more does he have to show you? What more does he have to show you? Great point for Matty Legend here. Billy was starting to trust him last year and give him big minutes, but then he got hurt. That's a fact. Julian Phillips was on pace to play about 54 games last season. I think he played 44. He was on pace to play like between 54 and 60 games last season as a rookie under Billy Donovan. Put some respect on this man's name and allow Julian Phillips to continue to show. Because the thing is, what do we say? Everybody has to earn it. And Julian Phillips is earning it right now. It's not just giving it to him because he's a guy that you drafted. Julian Phillips is showing by his performance and the way that he's grown his game from last year to this year that he is earning it. And that's what you want to see from your young players. That's the whole point of going younger for the Chicago Bulls, is showing it and giving these letting these young guys show you what they can bring and how they can help your team. And that's what we're seeing from the Chicago Bulls. But next up, we're going to be talking about the last roster spot for the Chicago Bulls and how Talen Horton-Tucker is separating himself from the rest of the players that were contending for that last playoff spot. We're going to get into that after this. All right, everydayers, I want to thank you guys again for tuning in to Locked On Bulls, man, and making us your first listen every single day. I can't stress enough how important that is, especially as we converted this show from being a fully pre-recorded show to a mainly live show. That's what we're doing here. We mainly record live now, giving you guys live streams multiple times a week. We appreciate you guys for supporting us through this transition. And yeah, we're going to keep it going because you guys have showed out, and I believe in giving the people what they want. You guys have shown that you like the content live, that you're going to show up to support the content live. So we're going to keep giving it to you live. But with that said, I got to talk to you guys about this last topic today. And so coming into this season, we knew that it was a competition. The Bulls only had one open roster spot. And that open roster spot was right now taken up by Ernelat, who has a non-guaranteed deal. So the Bulls brought in Talen Horton-Tucker, EJ Liddell, and Kenny Lofton Jr. And so, coming into the preseason play, there was a thought that, all right, these guys are going to be the ones that are competing for that final spot for the Chicago Bulls. Well, EJ Liddell and Kenny Lofton Jr. have yet to play any minutes for the Chicago Bulls. So to me, that indicates they're G League bound. They're probably going to be on two-way deals. It's cool. We'll see them in the G League. If you guys want to catch out weekly G League episodes, go over to Chicago Bulls Central as well, because I give weekly G League updates on Chicago Bulls Central. Nobody else is really watching the G League like that. Shameless plug. But with that said, so that left Kenny Lofton Jr. and Ernelat. Now, Batum is not playing. He did not play in the second preseason game at all. He played like a handful of minutes in the first preseason game. But THT and the performance that he gave right now has clearly separated himself from everybody else. Now, I want to be clear here. There is still a chance that with 3 preseason games remaining, that maybe somebody else shows something. Maybe Ernelat does get in the next 3 preseason games and looks great. Maybe it's something like that. But if you're going off the performance in the games, right, which is what we can base it off of, I mean, unless Billy Donovan, who does weird crap, is basing it off something else. If you're basing it off what's happening in games, Talen Horton-Tucker is separating himself. All in the fourth quarter base. Now, he played some minutes outside of the fourth quarter, but he didn't score anything. He scored 16 points, basically all in the fourth quarter of this game. 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals, 1 block. He had 4 Chris Duarte performances combined. 4 Chris Duarte games in one game. And I think there's something to be said with that. And then as well, when you look at THT, I'm not the biggest THT guy. I want to be clear here, right? I did not want THT to make this final roster for the Bulls. I would have much rather go to Ernelat. I think he's a better 3-point shooter, potentially. But again, we haven't seen it. And one thing that Billy Donovan does is he trusts his veterans. THT is a guy who's been in the NBA since 2019. He's averaged 21 minutes per game. He's played 247 games and basically averaged 10 points per game over that time. When you pair that with what he's been bringing so far in the preseason, to me, he's really separating himself in this battle for the final playoff spot. I mean, for the final roster spot for the Chicago Bulls. And I think that that's going to be something that's evident. So listen, when you look at THT, Big Diesel says Bulls need a big man with that. They're not going to get one. Like, I just broke it down. Billy Donovan does not care about big men. I just need everybody to sit in that. I don't disagree with you. Should we have a forward for the final, a combination forward 5? Yes, but they're not on the roster. And guess what they're not going to be? They're not going to appear on the roster. Guess what Billy Donovan's not going to do? He's not going to play. Let me be clear here. Even with THT making the final roster spot, he's probably not going to play any in the regular season. But I tell you what, he's showing more than Javon Carter. The ball-headed O, he's showing more than Javon Carter. He's performed more and been trusted more than Ernelat. THT right now is running away with that final roster spot. And so while I'm not saying it's a lock yet, I think one more performance, he's probably going to lock it down. He's probably going to lock it down. And that just is what it is, man. That is what it is. And listen, if you're basing it off the game, I don't see how anybody can be mad at it. THT is performing in the games. That's what you ask for. That's what you look for. And hey, I think that at this point, he's probably the one that's going to walk away with that final roster spot for the Chicago Bulls. So, we'll see how it comes along. I still think that a lot of people should be in that rotation ahead of him. Julian Phillips, Dalen Terry, these guys, Torrey Craig, of course, Ayo Dosunmu, Jalen Smith, Modest Will, all those guys should be way ahead of Talen Horton-Tucker once the regular season starts. But to have a guy on your bench, on the back end of your bench, that's reliable, that if you give minutes is going to be able to give some type of production, something to be said there. Ernest Batum is still an unknown, right? And there's a chance that he still stays on this team on a two-way contract afterwards. There's a chance of that. I think at this point, he's the one running away with it, and we got to see how that's going to turn out for him and the team as it goes forward. Is it going to be the right decision? That's something that we'll see as it goes through, man. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. This show has grown. Now that we've switched to live every single episode, every single week, we've averaged more and more live viewers in here. So tell you guys, tell all your friends, we are literally live every day, 11 a.m. Chicago time, 12 p.m. Eastern time, every single day, Monday through Friday here at Locked On Bulls. So if you want your Locked On Bulls live midday show, we'll be live here every single day. You guys can follow the show at Locked On Bulls. You guys should follow me at CEO Haize. I appreciate you guys so much for everything in supporting this show. We are a member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. You can check us out on every podcasting app and platform of your choice, as well as the Odyssey app, Amazon Fire TV, and everything else, man. I love you guys. Go Bulls. We'll see you guys tonight. We'll be live tonight after the game, so make sure you guys, the only time that we won't be live during the day is when it's after a game day, because we're going to record that episode at night right after the game. Love you guys. Go Bulls. We'll see you guys tonight, y'all. Peace.